Well, that was our graphic for creating things and building things, which I'm all for. The president, by the way, is finishing up right now a 3-state tour out west with a stop in Colorado. He's, of course, pushing his jobs plan. His focus today is on education and helping to renovate troubled schools. But it's not just schools that need help. Here's a fact about Colorado the president might not want to mention or might want to mention. There are 569 structurally deficient bridges in that state that could use work just to keep them safe. Bridges that American workers could be fixing. Right now, I don't get it. Work that needs being done. And speaking of the president's jobs plan, there's one part that hasn't gotten a great deal of attention, according to the New York Times. The president is backing a proposal to prohibit employers in this country from discriminating against job applicants who are unemployed. In other words, if you're out of work, you can't apply for work. A company can't discount you based on the fact that you don't currently have a job. It would also stop job boards and employment agencies from advertising for positions that exclude unemployed work. I never heard anything like this. Is it a good idea? Well, there are 14 million people out of work today in the United States, and 4.5 million of those have been unemployed for more than a year. So do the math. 4.5 million people sitting out there right now who want to work right now. In fact, are walking the streets looking for jobs. Dana Milbank's a columnist for the Washington Post. Steve Moore is a senior economic writer for the Wall Street Journal. I have to ask you, to start off the back, let's go with Steve. What is the case for employers being allowed to say, don't waste my time if you're unemployed looking for a job? You're not going to even get an interview.
Well, I
here.
don't think it's. I don't think it's right to say like Irish need not apply, unemployed need not apply. But I do think that, Chris, that it is important for employers to be able to look at the worker job history. And if somebody's been out of work for a long time, for better or worse, that's usually a negative on their resume. It doesn't look. I always tell people, the best way to find a job is to have a job. And
but
so,
Steve, you're being redundant. If you tell a person they can't apply for a job because they've been out of work, then the next time they apply for a job, they'll say you've been out of work longer, therefore you can't apply for this job. It seems like it's a redundant, vicious cycle you're creating here. Don't hire the unemployed so they can be unemployed next week and not get hired by someone who won't hire the unemployed. Isn't it a problem you've just created right here on this show? You've just done it. You've stepped in it.
No, I think that I think the problem is, one of the big problems with half of the people who are unemployed now have been unemployed for more than 6 months. I think one of the reasons for that, and the statistics show this, is we keep extending unemployment insurance. That's kept people unemployed longer than they would otherwise be, and it's hurt their job market prospects.
So as they go out to apply for a job, they're told they can't apply because they've been unemployed. But you say they don't go looking for jobs because they've been getting benefits. Which is it? Are they looking for jobs that are being rejected? Why would they put those signs up if they weren't having people come in looking for jobs who are unemployed? They wouldn't need the sign.
Look,
that's a good question. You don't know the answer,
jobs,
do you?
No question about
Why would you tell a person not to apply if they're unemployed if the unemployed aren't looking for jobs? You wouldn't need the sign, would you?
Look, Chris, you're taking out of context my words. I don't think it's fair for employers to say if you don't have a job, you can't apply. But I do think it's certainly legitimate for businesses to look at the work history. If somebody's been out of work for 2 years, you're less likely to want to hire that person than somebody actually who has been working.
Okay. Dana, let me ask you this about this. I didn't know this was going on. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you one thing. I'm into politics, not hiring people. I think it sounds like hell. This is the worst I've heard. Mm-hmm. You don't help a guy or a woman who's bound to work because, say, a plant closed. It's not their fault. They're living in some small town. All there is the plant. There's not another plant opening up. Yeah. It's not their fault.
Right. And Barack Obama, in proposing this, buried in the legislation, is praying that John Boehner will say the same sort of thing that Steve Moore just said, because leaving aside the economics, it puts the president.
So this is a boob trap.
Well, sure it is. I mean, look, very few things in this jobs bill are being passed. The only real unemployment we're talking about here is preventing Barack Obama from becoming unemployed. So he's picking various fights with the Republicans. Even if this were implemented, these things would take months, if not years, to resolve in lawsuits. But it's good politics, and it's illustrated by the fact that there's one state that's doing this sort of thing, blocking employers from having these ads saying no unemployed need apply, and that is New Jersey. And this law was signed by Chris Christie, the man all these Republicans
president on this.
Are hoping
he signed the bill. By the way, Christie agrees with the president. I knew that the other day. Here's the president last month explaining why this kind of protection for the unemployed job applicant is necessary. By the way, he's on the very popular Tom Joyner radio show. Let's listen to him.
We have seen instances in which employers are explicitly saying we don't want to take a look at folks who've been unemployed. Well, that makes absolutely no sense. And I know there's legislation that I'm supportive of that says you cannot discriminate against folks because they've been unemployed, particularly when you've seen so many folks who, through no fault of their own, ended up being laid off because of the difficulties of this recession.
Well, let's talk politics a bit. Steve, I know you're an economics guy, but the politics are fairly clear. The president has had a challenge in restoring or reigniting his base, African Americans, working people. It seems like he brought this up because he sees it as an opportunity.
Well, there's no question. I mean, President Obama has moved pretty sharply to the left. I mean, I've been listening to the speeches he's been giving for the last 3 days. They've been kind of big chunks of red meat to the liberal constituencies. But I'm not so sure, Chris, that this is the best strategy for this president to get reelected. I mean, what really surprises me the most, Dana, about this president over the last year or so is that he has not pulled a Bill Clinton. He has not moved to the middle. He has really continued to govern from the left, and that's what the voters voted against in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you want to answer the new moderator here?
Well, I think what happened is, who should I address here? Well, I think what happened, Chris and Steve, is that the president did go to the middle a couple of times. But basically what happened is he started out with what was a moderate proposal and then got pulled to the right by Republicans. I don't think it's a matter of governing to the left or right. I think this is a tactical shift here. And he's just saying, look, I'm going to take a more extreme position to get it where I want.
You know what people remember? The things that big shots think of the small stuff. Family home leave, Lilly Ledbetter, equal employment payment, things like that. The little things that seem so little to big shots, but regular people say, that affects me. Mm-hmm. And I can connect with that. I think people connect
Chris,
with the right of...
I don't buy that, Chris. I mean, look, the fundamental number is the one that you started this segment with. 14 million people unemployed. The president is the coach. If it's not working, you fire the coach. I mean, no matter how many of these things you pass, like, we'll give protection for jobs for people who don't have, who are unemployed, that's not going to get around the fundamental problem that there just aren't enough jobs in this economy, and it's because the president's jobs programs haven't worked.
That's true. There's 14 million unemployed. What the president's trying to do is bring them under the Democratic umbrella. We're protecting the old folks, the women, gays, and the unemployed.
I think it's a harder case to make, Steve, and I just end on this, to say that corporations are people, too. This argument by Mitt Romney that corporations are human and they're thinking, care about people, and then they put up signs, if you're unemployed, don't waste your time here. That doesn't make Mitt Romney's case any better. I agree. 14 million unemployed is a hard obstacle for this president. Thank you very much, Dana Milbank, and thank you, Steve Moore.